In today's video, we are talking all about anxiety about the future and resistance and what you can do so that you can live your life more in alignment with your true nature and drop the worry so that you can have the impact in the world that you came here to make. Stay tuned for the entire video so that you can leave with the tips that are going to help you. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Cody Ann Smith. I am the host of Sovereign Solutions Podcast. I'm a mother of three, an inspirational speaker, and a spiritual lifestyle mentor for people who are ready to answer their highest calling, master their energy, and lead a life of sovereignty. And today we are talking about anxiety about the future. And oh my gosh, there is so many reasons to have anxiety about the future right now. We could find all the reasons for that. And I want to first say, that if you are experiencing this, you are not alone. This is happening at a collective level, and this is happening at an individual level. I experience it as well, but the difference is that I don't get stuck there for as long, and I'm able to move through it a lot quicker. And that's what I want to help you guys with today. And, I'm going to give you guys some insights that I received today that hopefully will help you by the end of this video. Now, this morning when I was sitting in my garage, that's where I do my yoga. That's where I also contemplate. It's quiet out there. Again, I have 3 kids, so I have to take my time in a quiet space, and that so happens to be it. So I was in my garage, and I'm sitting here contemplating this anxiety about the future. And it was funny because as I was contemplating this June bug comes and crashes into the garage, and it falls onto the ground. And here it is, he's like rocking back and forth, and he's kicking his legs, and he's rocking back and forth, and he's not going anywhere, and I'm just watching him. And I'm thinking about anxiety, and I'm looking at him, and I'm sitting here thinking, he's probably experiencing this same anxiety about the future that we are, in a sense that he's struggling so hard to get off of his back because he's worried. He's anxious about becoming breakfast for the birds, and he's doing everything in his power so that he can move and get up and save his life. Well, he struggled for quite a while, I would say probably about 5 minutes, before he finally paused. He stopped. He completely stopped what he was doing. And as if by magic, he just rolls over. He rolls all his weight and his legs over, and he rolls right onto his legs. And it's funny because that's all he had to do was to just use all of his weight to go one way, but instead he was freaking out, And when I was watching him, I was thinking, wow, we kind of do that too, actually. And maybe that's kind of how we're approaching anxiety when it comes to the future, is that we are metaphorically sitting here just kicking our legs and not really going anywhere because we're just stuck and paralyzed in fear and suffering. And it was just a really, really interesting insight to have. So it is true, obviously, that is a bug, and we have way more complex things to worry about, and our anxiety is obviously a lot more complex than that. We worry about our survival right now, our kids going back to school and how that's going to look for them. We're worried about our livelihood. We're worried about our health. We're worried about the health of our planet. We're worried about our economics. We're worried about our job security, our house. All these different things are coming to the forefront right now. I've seen it on social media. I've seen people posting about it multiple times. There's a lot of people who are struggling right now with not knowing where the money is going to come for them to be able to pay their mortgages. This is a real problem. And the anxiety is real, and it's very, very, I can't think of the word right now. It's validated, right? It's validated to have these anxieties by all means. I'm definitely not saying to bypass these anxieties and act like you don't have them, because that is not helpful. But there is a way to work through them. And It is also equally not helpful to worry nonstop, because worry does not get us anywhere. In fact, I read a quote somewhere that said, worry is like praying for the wrong thing to happen. Because worry creates an energy field, just like if we were to pause and to cultivate our energy within. And so when we're worrying, what happens is it creates this really uncomfortable energy. It's this energy of fear. It's a scattered energy. It's definitely not a comfortable place to be, because worry and anxiety is all created around fear. And if we are creating with the energy of fear, we are going to create something that will not be sustainable. Everything that's built on fear will one day collapse. And that's kind of what we're seeing right now with our systems that we have in place. Everything is kind of crumbling right now because a lot of it has been built around fear, around not having enough, around lack mentality, around greed, and just so much, there's so much that goes into what's happening right now. But us individually, what can we do in order to take ourselves off of that loop that we keep finding ourselves on, right? That loop of worry, that loop of needing to read the next post on social media, also known as a distraction, right? I don't know about you guys, but I am the master at distraction. And that's my go-to when I get overloaded. And if I don't catch myself in time, it can build up a lot of momentum in the wrong direction, and then I can really start to suffer. And luckily, though, we have techniques that we can use so we don't have to let it get that bad. Sometimes it happens, but most of the time now I'm able to catch it before it gets that bad and turn it around. And that's kind of what I'm going to share with you guys today. So I'm going to share with you guys how I am able to do that. So, the first thing that I know needs to happen is that when we're in anxiety, we are disconnected from source. At least at a conscious level, we are disconnected from source. And we are no longer co-creating with source at that point. And when we are in anxiety, we're trying to force and we're trying to change our circumstances. What we're doing is we're creating by our own personal will, our will to escape, our will to not accept the environment that we find ourselves in, and our will to want to control the future, right? So we have this disconnect between the divine plan and our plan, because our plan is that we would like things to turn out a certain way, but we're not quite sure how to get it there, hence the anxiety. And then the divine plan's sitting here like, well, waiting for us to just to surrender and to come into communion with it, right? Ultimately, that's what this is about coming back into communion with the divine so that we can have insight into our next action to get ourselves off of that loop, off of that anxiety-ridden loop that we tend to get on when we are following our thoughts into the abyss, basically. And so when we come into communion with the divine, I like to think about communion as a means of unified communication. So when you come into communion with the divine, it is a relationship, and it's based on our ability to communicate and to unify our communication with the divine. We can receive downloads, we can receive insights, we can receive clarity. All that good stuff happens when we do that. And what happens when we do receive this clarity is that we begin to trust again. We begin to relax deeply. And in order for us to truly make the impact that we came here to make, we cannot do it from tense, right? We can't be tense and have a bunch of tension in our bodies and stuff, because that blocks light. I know this is a little mystical, but it blocks photons from being able to truly express themselves in our DNA. It constricts the flow of energy and light, thus creating more and more of what we don't want, okay? So, aligning our will with the will of the divine through coming into communion. How in the heck do we do this, right? Well, first of all, the very first thing that we have to do is to stop, right? Just like our June bug friend, he was struggling and struggling and struggling until he finally decided enough was enough, and he decided to stop. And when he stopped, he got the insight, right? Because when we pause, we create the space to receive insight and clarity, because otherwise we can't receive it, because it's like if we were to look at a lake and the lake waters are just just really murky and the water's just crazy, well, all that mud and all that dirt kind of is, you can't see through the water until the dust settles, basically. And so that's kind of what happens. We have to be able to pause and let our thoughts and emotions all kind of settle before we can truly, truly know what the next step is to take. And so the very first thing to do is to stop and pause. And it can be a short pause or it can be a long pause, but you have to be able to tune into your own body to know if you have reached a pause inside of you that is going to lead to an insight. In other words, if you still are having intrusive thoughts that are coming in and trying to get your attention away from the present moment, then you have to continue to stay in that pause. And step 2 of that is to keep surrendering to those intrusive thoughts. There's thoughts that come in that try to lure you away from the present moment. We all know this, but these intrusive thoughts, especially when we're dealing with anxiety about the future, are all the fears of what we are scared that's going to happen, right? So every time, let's take health, for example, since we're dealing with this coronavirus. If we are so scared about our health and it's causing us anxiety about the future, about how our health is going to turn out, and we are sitting here in a pause and these intrusive thoughts keep coming in saying, you're going to get sick, or somebody that you love is going to get sick and they could die, or what if one of your kids catches this? Every time one of those thoughts come in, you move closer to that thought and you allow it to be there. It's that allowing that helps it to dissolve. It's the pushing away of that thought that creates the resistance, which keeps it stuck there. And it seems like a paradox, and it kind of really is, but that's what surrender is about. And anytime these intrusive thoughts come in, you just get to invite them in and know that, hey, this is literally just a thought. This does not mean that this is going to happen. This is anxiety. Call it out for what it is and keep bringing awareness to it. Intrusive thoughts will eventually go away. And next to intrusive thoughts, we have impulses, right? We're sitting there in the present moment and we want to distract ourselves because we don't really want to face what's going on inside because it's kind of nerve-wracking, right? It's kind of scary, especially if we're used to not sitting with those feelings. So anytime there's an impulse, same thing, surrender it. Allow it to be there. Know that it's there, but you don't have to act on that impulse, right? That's really, really key here. And then next, you just wait. And I know this doesn't sound fun. And, you don't literally have to just sit in that spot and wait. Waiting can be an active form of waiting where you are just going about your day, but you're still being conscious and taking pauses to see where you're at to make sure that you're not feeding into that anxiety loop. But waiting happens on its own time, right? Or things happen as you wait in their own time is what I mean. And while we're waiting, we tend to have this emotional wave, these emotional highs and lows. And I call this surfing the waves, and just like any surfer knows, it's important to lean into those waves. If you want to truly be able to effortlessly surf the waves, you've got to lean into them. And that's how these emotional waves are. They show up, they try to pull you under, but you still hold your ground. You know that these waves can come splashing on you and it's not going to shake you. You continue to practice this, right? And then eventually what happens is that you learn how to make peace. And I would say that you can do this really intentionally, actually, is to make peace with the future of not knowing how the future is going to turn out. Because the truth is that we are never certain of anything, ever. Ever, ever, ever. In each moment, something that can totally change our lives can happen. And we have to be okay with that. We have to learn how to make peace with that. Because if we don't, we're going to harm ourselves in the long run. We're going to continue to stay in that resistance. We're going to continue to feel uneasy, create that anxiety inside of us, that really scattered, chaotic energy. Or we can make peace with not knowing the outcome, but still having faith and trusting that the divine has your back. right? Trusting in that. And then relaxing. Oh my gosh. Relaxing mentally, physically, and emotionally. And that is what's going to open you up to having your first insight. Your first insight is it's like something that you haven't thought of before that is a solution. Or maybe it's a creative project that drops in, or maybe it's a message that you need to share with the world, or maybe it's just the next step for you to take. You have an insight into whatever challenge you're dealing with. And that's the confirmation that you are actually contemplating. Because this can only be solved, well, probably through other ways, but through contemplation. Contemplation is the best way that I have found to help resolve this issue. Okay? In the Tao, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Tao, but it's the way is what they call it. Well, there's this path in the Tao, and it's called Wu Wei. And basically what Wu Wei is effortless progress. See, here's the thing. For some reason, we think that if we're not trying and pushing our will onto things, that nothing's going to change. But that is not necessarily true. This path of Wu Wei reminds us that we can deeply relax into the moment and let insights come to us, and then take action on those insights as they come, right? There's a timing for everything. And when we're pushing against that timing, that's when we create more anxiety. That's when we create more resistance. So following the path of Wu Wei, of surrendering to effortless progress, will take you far. It'll help you to make the impact that you came here to make, and it will also help you to navigate your daily life, right? Because we have to start at an individual level before we can truly make an impact in the world. It is the energy that we cultivate at an individual level that's going to have the biggest impact in the world. So, just to recap, when you're on that mental loop of anxiety about the future, pause. Just stop. You have to get off that cycle. Second thing to do, surrender. Surrender to the intrusive thoughts, surrender to the impulses, and do not take action on them. Third thing, wait and ride the emotional wave. Fourth thing, make peace with the unknown. Make peace with the unknown of the future. And then deeply relax into effortless progress by taking action on the insights that come to you from that place of deep relaxation. The good thing is that when you relax, everybody else around you can relax. They can pick up on that energy. And just by you being you, you can make an impact in another person's life. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit like, subscribe, and please leave a comment down at the bottom. The more that you guys interact with these videos, the more people are going to see them. So thank you very much. I hope that you guys have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day, and I will talk to you guys soon.